The Bible study is titled, What Makes People Question God? So I think this is a valid question because on this topic, because there are many people who really question God. Uh, I don't know if you are not one of them. Uh, I think that almost all people, let me say, that they question God. So this is Bible study, so may I ask some comments or some answer to this question? What makes people question God? I know there are many things that make people question God, but maybe what you have in mind?
Siguro sa kanang sunod-sunod ang unfortunate bitaw nga mga mishaps kanang one after another or wala pa gyud nasolve na po kana siguro nga instances.
Okay, so thank you. No? So what Siskay is saying is that a person experiences misfortunes one after another. So that's really a valid answer, no? Because it really happens. No? Comment from the Zoom. So first, Sis Laramie, the circumstances could be one. And for Brother Joshua, hardships. Yeah, thank you for the inputs. Who else? Or what else? Who wants to share? What makes people question God? That's the you might have something in mind. Before we tackle the topic.
Answer of prayers. Maybe prayers na for a long they prayed for a long time, but siguro opposite na may tapo or wala din may tapo or they pray or they hope na may tapo that time that they hope people happen.
Okay. So a person keeps on praying, no? And then it never happened. Okay? So unanswered prayer. You did not pray for so long and then it never happened. Okay? Of course, you have biblical examples of that. No? You can just imagine Sarah and Abraham, Elizabeth and Zechariah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Any other question?
When I answer the prayer that way, answer the prayer. So bad.
Answer prayer for others.
Like seemingly unfair.
Okay. Seemingly unfair, no? Because you can pray something and then it never happened, and then someone else who is not even a Christian, what's this? His prayer, was that prayers to answer?
Often I ask my God, why have you blessed me so much? In spite of hardships, hard times, I know I am still blessed, and why?
So it's a question of why God blessed us so much. No? So of course, God has always a purpose. No? Sometimes we are blessed so much so that we will be tested with it. We can share it and share the blessings to others or not. I've been using the family. No? God has so much blessings to pour upon us. But if we are a small funnel, God will not use you because so much blessing cannot be poured out because you are a very small funnel. But if you are a big funnel, God will definitely use you. What I mean is, when you have the blessings, when you receive blessings, you pour out the blessings to others. So just like when you have liquid, for example, you have plenty of liquid to transfer. You will never use a small funnel. Otherwise, it will take so long. It will very, very time consuming to wait for all those liquids to be transferred to other containers, for example. So, yeah, in the Bible, it says that I will bless you. But God said, beware, lest you will forget me. So in Deuteronomy chapter 8, that's what God has warned the Israelites. And this is really happening today. It's not a time, it's not a warning during the time of the Israelites, but it's a warning for all ages. Anyway, so much for that. Huh? Thank you for the inputs. I have prepared three items only for you to remember easily. Otherwise, if I give you a lot, then it's difficult to remember all of them. Huh? So at least three. Huh? Okay, Rachel. So this is the outline of our study. First one is, of course, introduction. Then, first item is feeling brighter than God. Feeling brighter than God, or more intelligent than God. Next is lack of trust in God. And the third one is ungrateful to men. It seems weird, no? But I will discuss later on. How come that being ungrateful to men will make you question God? Later on, I will explain that. Anyway, of course, after that, our reflection. So you will notice I highlighted the first three letters. First letter of each item. So what can you read? Flu. So they are spiritually with flu. Or spiritual flu. Yeah. So it's easy to remember, no? So again, flu. So first introduction muna. Okay, let's start with this simple example. The Israelites, you know that Israelites were blessed to have that experience of crossing the Red Sea. We will say blessed because it's once in a lifetime experience, but others failed to experience that one. I'm sure you want all to experience that one, if possible. Can you imagine? Anyway, but right after that, if you will notice, this happened in Exodus chapter 14. Exodus chapter 14. And then, right in Exodus 17, chapter 17, we have a, shall we say, small problem. Because they just lack water. They did not have water to drink. So if you compare this problem with the problem wherein you were trapped before the Red Sea, it's incomparable. Being trapped before the Red Sea, that's really, shall we say, fearful. In fact, they really fear. So it says here, and then later on, he asked for, God answered their prayers, and God gave them water. Exodus 17, verse 6. It's God promised, or the Lord, Yahweh, Jehovah, said, I will be standing there in front of you on the rock in Horeb, at Horeb. Strike the rock and water will come out of it so that the people may drink. Moses did so, and the sight of the elders of Israel. So that's the first case, that they were asking for water, and God gave them water freely from the rock. Next. So in Numbers 20, verses 10 to 11, and then of course, previous part, they also asked for water, and God gave them water also. In Numbers 20, verses 10 to 11, we can read. Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock. And he said to them, listen, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their livestock drank. So this is the second time around that they wanted water, and God gave them water. This is chapter 20 of Numbers. What happened in chapter 21? What happened next? Up in chapter 21, they spoke against God, or they complained. Yeah, they questioned God. It says here in verse 5 of chapter 21, the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food, no water, and we detest this miserable food. So that's what they question God. Why? Of course, Moses is the visible one. So, but actually they were complaining against God. They questioned God, and of course through Moses. So it says here, why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? Okay, so that's their question. And they said there is no food, no water. They just drank the water in chapter 20. But that's the second time that God gave them water for them to take from the rock. And they said, we detest this miserable food. That's about the manna. So, and you see, we were blessed first by letting them cross the Red Sea, saving from the Egyptians. That's the first thing. Then twice we were given water, but still they kept on complaining. So I think that's the nature in a sense. It's really natural for people to question God in times of need. So let's. I think that's the introduction, and let's just move to the lesson proper. Before that, we still have one. What's the consequence? In verse 6 to 7, then the Lord sent poisonous serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many Israelites died. Verse 7, the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against God. Against God. Pray to the Lord to take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. So this is for us to think about. Once we complain against God, definitely we will also get the corresponding consequence. Okay? So that's the introduction. Let's move to the lesson proper. Okay, so the first item is feeling brighter than God. Do you think it's true? No? That you will question God if you will think you are much better than God. Is it a good thing? No? Remember that we are just His creatures. Do we have the right to question God? No? But many people who do not believe in God really tend to question God. And that will result of disbelief in God. But they will no longer believe in God. Okay, so we have this. Can you cite some verses proving that we are, what's this? We are just creatures. We cannot question God, or we have some limitations. And God is really limitless, infinite in knowledge and so on. In a verse, do you have in mind? Again, once we question God, we tend to be brighter than God. Okay? Supposedly, God's wisdom is unfathomable. You cannot fathom the depths of God's knowledge and His ways and so on. But we tend to question God, especially again when we have misfortunes and so on. So we tend to question God. Just like a review. Last Sunday in my sermon, I think if you still remember, the message was titled, "Give me a grateful heart, O God." No? Grateful. No? So, okay. So some of the verses I just repeated here. The first one is, this is a common thing. Isaiah 55:8-9. God said, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, your ways are not my ways, says the Lord. Just like the heavens are higher than the earth, so are His ways and thoughts higher than ours. So with that, we cannot question God. We should not question God because our ways, our thoughts is really the way below God's ways and thoughts. No? So you have to remember that. In fact, my experience with this is we have a Muslim student who attended the Bible study. Every time I mentioned about Christ dying on the cross, he laughed. No? Because according to him, why should he die? He can simply say, be saved. Which is really true. God can say, you are all saved. Without dying on the cross. It's really possible. But why do you think this? Why did God do that? Or is there the wisdom behind it? Okay, let me get you. Some of you have attended my Bible study. I included this in my importance of God's lesson. So maybe you can still remember an example there.
They take for granted because it was paid for something.
Take for granted.
Hindi siya na-take for granted. Hindi siya dali-dali na malingtan or take for granted because it was paid in something.
Okay, so after this is came, by doing so, it will not easily be forgotten. No? Unlike when you say you are already saved without doing anything. Right? No? Yeah, it's true. No? For me, I don't know if anyone has another opinion. Sis Paula. Okay, so according to Sis Paula, to give some kind of piece of information to let them know that sins have consequences. So that's basically what Sis Paula is saying. Okay, so thank you, everyone. This is how I tell, either in the personal Bible study or in the Facebook, some groups, especially with the masculine groups. I told them, yes, it's possible, but there is wisdom in dying in the cross. You have to think about it. God gave His Son Jesus Christ to die on the cross for us. Christ suffered for us, and now we are saved. But can you imagine how many people have the gratitude to share His grace to others? As a token of gratitude, we tell others about Christ. Okay? Only very few. How much more if God did not die? Nobody will have this kind of gratitude. I don't think because if you think about it, it was very painful. In fact, we didn't want to die. So the thought of dying is really painful to us. And yet Christ died, and then people are not even grateful. They don't give value to what Christ did in the cross. Okay, so my example, another example is, I grew up in a family which is really very poor. I think we are the poorest among the relatives. And so early in my childhood, I already helped my parents in earning a living. So I really grew up with education, and I know the value of money because I did not receive money from my parents, but I earned my money, and I did help my parents for them. So every time I have money, I will not easily spend it for anything else not very useful to me. I always keep money. I value highly money because I know the value of money. Whereas if you compare it with a person who grew up in affluence, just getting money from the parents, for example, without working hard, then you can see the difference. If you have money, most likely the money will not stay longer. It will not stay long in their pockets or in their accounts, whatever. So I believe there is wisdom in what God or in dying. There's wisdom for Christ dying on the cross. God is not a fool. Okay? So that's why we have to just understand. The best thing to do is try to understand what God is doing in our lives. If you have problems, we have to think about it. Let's understand why I have these problems. If you are blessed, that's a good question. Why am I blessed? So God has a purpose for that. You are used by God to extend His blessings to others, because God will not just drop the blessings before people. God will use people to spread, to extend His grace or His blessings to other people. Okay, so again, instead of questioning, we should try to understand why it happened. Recently, you see this week, there's something that I realized. I did not know these things are here. I could have used this one in the past, But anyway, go, Lord, I know you have a plan for me. Okay, so I will not question why I overlooked such important thing. And then I said, Lord, I know you have a purpose for that. So I'll just try to understand later. But rather than just, Lord, how come I need this one during the time that I overlooked this one? Something like that. No? So we don't have to question God. No? We just be thankful to God and then try to understand what God is doing to us. So always remember that our ways, our thoughts are not comparable to the ways and thoughts of God. Okay? And here in 1 Corinthians, Paul said, for God's foolishness is wiser than human wisdom, and God's weakness is stronger than human strength. So which is really true. No? No matter how poor God is, seemingly in his actions and so on, but it's still wiser than human actions. Okay, next, just like in verse 18 here, this is 125. No? In verse 18, I think it says there that the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. But for those who are saved, for us, not for our saved, it's the power of God. No? Okay, so here's another example, a critical example that we cannot question God. So I'll just go through this verse, Romans chapter 9, verses 17 to 21. And verse 17 says, for the scripture says to Pharaoh, I have raised you up for the very purpose of sharing the power in you, so that my name may be proclaimed in all the earth. So it seems unfair. Pharaoh was used by God to accomplish God's plan. I cannot question God. Why did God choose Pharaoh? It's unfair to Pharaoh. It's like also saying it's unfair to Judas. But actually, if you think about it, God is just using people who are actually people who don't have the heart for God. For example, I think in the Bible it's mentioned that Judas, because he knew God, Jesus Christ knew from the very start his heart. So it's just using people who is already evil to accomplish his plan. Okay, so it's not fair. It's not unfair. It's fair. Okay, so here is the statement, and let's continue. Verse 18. So then, he has mercy on whomever he chooses, and he hardens the heart of whomever he chooses. Verse 19, you will say to me then, why then does he still find fault? For who can resist his will? So yeah, it's a valid question. So if he is in control, he chooses people, then why am I given this way? Something like that. Why am I considered sinning against him and so on, or doing against his will and so on? So that's the question. Verse 20 and 21, this is said. According to Paul, who indeed are you? A human being to argue with God. Okay? Who are you? Well, what is molded? What is molded? Say to the one who molds it, why have you made me like this? Okay? Has the potter no right over the clay to make out of the same lump one object for special use and another for ordinary use? So that's a question of Paul. Yeah, sure. Whatever things you have the liberty to do something. And you cannot complain. In fact, in the Old Testament, you still remember about this master-slave relationship. Yeah. The slaves are actually property of the masters. No? So they did not have any right to complain. No? Because they're just the master's property. No? So it's the same today, although we're not referring to the physical slavery now, but in the spiritual sense, since we claim that Jesus is Lord or Master, we have no right to complain. We just simply try to obey His will because, of course, we know that He is leading us in the right path. No? God is not someone who is really, what's this, who is keen on destroying us. The fact that Christ was sent, that's already a clear indication that God loves us so much. That's why in John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world. But it's the world that rejects Christ. So I hope we have this, we have to change our perspective. So again, rather than questioning God, we should rather, try to understand. No? We should not feel that we are brighter or more intellect, more intelligent than God. So we are just His creatures. Okay. So any other verse that you can maybe include or add to the this is Bible study again, so you can interact, we can say something. No? So if there's none, let's have the second point. No? Lack of trust in God. Okay. So if we lack trust in God, there's really a high tendency that we will always question God. Let's have an example of the Israelites. In the introduction, I already gave some, but this is the, let's go back to Exodus 14, verses 10 to 11. It says here, verse 10, as Pharaoh drew near, the Israelites looked back, and there were the Egyptians advancing on them. In great fear, the Israelites cried out to the Lord. So, again, I think it's normal for us, for the Israelites to get scared of the enemy not coming. And we had nowhere to run because they were facing the sea. So, I'm sure it's understandable. Next, in verse 11, he said to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? Okay, so they question Moses now. Of course, it's actually indirectly questioning God because God sent Moses to bring him out of Egypt, right? So, so they question Moses, but actually the question is directed to God in a sense. Huh? What have you done to us? Bringing us up? Yeah, what have you done to us? Bringing us out of Egypt. So that's what we ask. Huh? Next, in verse 12, is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt? Let us alone and let us serve the Egyptians. So, yeah, that's the question. Huh? Let us alone and let us serve the Egyptians. That's we have been asking that before, but you brought us out of Egypt. Something like that. Huh? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. So that's their what's this? Response to the situation. No? They were actually facing the sea. So in verse 13, it says here, no? But Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. So here is a good thing for us to know. Although it's worded as do not be afraid. It's also the same as do not fear. So, but later on he said, see the deliverance. So just stand firm and see the deliverance of the Lord. And then the verse 14 says, the Lord will fight for you. And you have only to keep still. Well, you just stay calm. Now, so in other words, Moses was saying, translate your fear to faith or trust God. Trust God that is able to deliver you from these Egyptians. Because it was God who told Moses to get these people out of Egypt. And then it would be not wise for God to stop and just let the Israelites die from the Egyptians. No? So this is the thing that we have to remember. Normally, again, when we fear, that's the time that we question God. We fear because we lack trust in God. We lack faith in God. Okay? So that's why we have to remember this. Every time you have fear, translate your fear to faith or trust, and you will have the maybe less mental health problem. Actually, we have experienced the pandemic for more than 2 years already. Many people complain about their mental health. Thanks to God, I did not have any. Now, throughout, I always trust in God. God is able to protect us if He wants. He has no limit as to the power of saving us or keeping us safe. All we have to do is just pray. When we pray, we trust Him. And we trust Him that He is able. And if He allows it, then obey it because it's will. It is will. No? We have to obey His will. So, in that way, you will have to worry a lot. No? Worry, anxiety, then later on, depression, suicide. That's usually the symptoms. No? So, translate your fear into faith, and you will have peace of mind. You will have, it says, stand still, keep calm. Okay? So, this is a good example. Again, it was really careful. I think it's normal to be afraid of, but Moses said, just stand still. No? Just keep still, and then the Lord will fight for you. So trust God in that sense. So because he lacked this trust, he really feared. And but again, God is faithful in fighting for His people. And then in Exodus 17, verse 1 and 2, right? Three chapters. 14 to 17. So in chapter 17, verse 1. From the wilderness of Sin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages, as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So this is eventually a simple problem compared to the problem of being trapped before the Great Sea. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" So again, they forgot what Moses said. Stand still. Translate your fear into faith. Now, they feared that they would die. They feared that they would die of thirst. So they put the Lord to the test. Okay? So that's lack of trust. They already saw the greatest miracle in their life. That is crossing the Red Sea. Nobody else except them experienced such a mighty act of God. And then here comes a problem with water. And then they already question God. Next, in verse 3, but the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst?" So they always ask the question, why? Why did you get us out? Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Okay, but again, if you think about how God helped them, this is really actually not comparable to the situations. So that's like what the sister said. If you have problem, face it another. If you have problems, one after another, you tend to question God. But I hope rather than questioning God, let's just thank God and then try to understand what God has given us. Verse 7, so it says, he called the place Massa and Meribah because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" So can you imagine people who experience the crossing the Red Sea, which is actually very, very, it is in fact once only, except that crossing the road Jordan, but crossing the Red Sea is really the peak, so we say, of God's power among the Israelites. I mean, give it to the Israelites. But the question is the Lord among us or not? Or in some version, is the Lord in our midst or not? Okay, so they already experienced a lot of God's power, God's doing and so on. But still, the question God, is the Lord among us or not? Anyway, so that's really lack of trust. Let's have an example. Someone who really had trust in his life, who had trust in his life. We discussed this last Sunday, not in my sermon. No? So I will not have to give the background, just like what Sister mentioned, one after another. We know that last Sunday I mentioned this one. There were reports coming to Job, and then one after another. While someone was still speaking, another came and told him again another story. So it was really very problematic. No? So in fact, I think we all know that he lost everything, including his sons and daughters. What remained in him was his wife. Can you imagine how problematic the situation is? If you don't trust in God, you will easily curse God, right? If you don't trust God, you will question God. Why is this happening to me? I'm a good man. I'm an upright man. Because it was described as an upright man. No? But what was the reaction of Job? Job said in verse 20, Job 1 verse 20, it says here, then Job arose, tore down his robe, shaved his head, and fall on the ground and worship. Instead of questioning God, he worshiped. But the situation is really not favorable. One problem after another, and it cost the lives of his children, sons and daughters. He lost everything. Okay, I think it's okay to lose everything. But if you lost your children, I doubt you can bear the pain of losing your children. You may lose everything not related to you, but just your position and so on. But losing your loved ones, I think it's not bearable. There's a tendency for us to really question God why this happened. No? But Job's response was different. It says here, he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So imagine he praised the name of the Lord. Lord blessed is actually equivalent to praise, no? Praiseworthy. This in the Old Testament, but I believe if you check the Greek for this is eulogitos. There's a Septuagint version, Greek Old Testament. This is, I believe, I have not checked, but I believe this is eulogitos from the word eulogy. The word eulogy and eulogitos, that's the same. I think I have emphasized this that the word blessed in the New Testament has two possible Greek words. The ones we can read in the Beatitude, that is Makarios, meaning happy. That's why some persons use happy are those who mourn. But there are verses that says eulogitos, blessed, like when Elizabeth greeted Mary, he said, blessed are you among women. That's blessed is eulogitos. So it's because he took the challenge. It was not a good idea to be pregnant without getting married at that time. So it was really a shameful thing to do, but he took the challenge. That's why he is called blessed, blessed, praiseworthy. So here he praised the name of the Lord, despite all the things that happened to him, including the loss of his children. I'm sure it's difficult. I believe it's difficult. Compare our lives there. Well, what were our problems before? I'm sure it's not they are not comparable with the experience of Job. And we know we tend to question God. No? But Job, praise the Lord, worship the Lord. Okay? So I hope, and then of course last Sunday, I showed you that Job's what Job lost, God doubled in the end, because he stayed faithful. Okay, so I hope instead of again questioning God, let's just understand God because He has a better plan for us. So in fact, in verse 21, it says here, in all days, Job did not sin or charge God with wrongdoing. So that's really worth imitating. this kind of attitude that Job has. Okay, ito, ungrateful to men. Okay, so this is quite odd. If you, again, the first thing is, the first reason is feeling brighter than God. I think that's understandable. Second is lack of trust in God. I think that's understandable. But being ungrateful to men, it's quite, not easy to understand. Can you guess? Can you guess why I choose that subtopic ungrateful to men? Huh? It's quite odd, actually. No? Let's see. I only have one verse here, so we'll be done. So, okay, yeah. Can you guess? Why is it possible? Why, if you are ungrateful to men, you tend to question God? Or that also a contributing factor that we question God?
Hindi mo buhat sa ginubuhat mo sa mga isuon mo, pero ginubuhat sa Ginoo. So, wala di ko grateful sa tao, di ko grateful sa Ginoo.
Okay, so yeah, more or less, no? That's a good point. No? Do you agree? If you're not doing it to your children, if you're doing it to your children, that's you are doing most of the God. Okay. Any other comment or inputs? This is really something to think about because I think this is really something that many people fail to realize. Okay, I only have one verse, and from this verse we will try to see if it's really true. In 1 John 4 verse 20, this is what we can read. We can read. If someone says, "I love God," and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, how can he love God when he has not seen? Does it make sense now? So it's all about love, but you can apply that to other things. If you cannot love your fellow man, whom you can see, how can you love God whom you do not see? Or you have not seen? In the same way, if we are ungrateful to our fellow man, meaning someone helped us with some whatever things he has given to us, and then we are not grateful to them, to that someone, there's a tendency that you keep still questioning his behavior and so on. I noticed that. I have experienced that also. Now, if you are, if someone is really ungrateful, then no matter what you extend to that person, later on, they will really always find fault of you. And they will question you, why do this and do that. No? So if you do that to your fellow men, that you have seen giving you something physically, how can you be grateful to God that whom you did not see? Right? If you think about it, first, God gave us life. Sometimes we don't care about it. Yeah? Sometimes we forget that this life is from God. Whatever we enjoy every day, the sunlight, the rain, all these things come from God. But we have not seen God. So how can we appreciate God if we cannot even appreciate or we cannot be grateful to someone that we see? The people who help us, for example, you see the person. Unlike God, you don't see God giving all these things. You just believe that this comes from Him. No? But someone who helped you, giving you something in some sort, or some possible ways, if you cannot be grateful to them, you will be complaining against them. And all the more that you will complain against God because you have not seen God. So this principle is applicable. I hope you will agree with me. This is something for us to think about. And I have observed this actually. I have observed this that they are ungrateful and try to find a fault of you because they are ungrateful. Now, therefore, that's the same with God. No? Since they have not seen God, they don't appreciate what is given to them. Then when something happens, if they have a problem after another problem, we tend to question, "Oh, God, why this happen to me?" Because we have not practiced this gratefulness or being grateful or this gratitude toward our fellow men. So I hope that you get the point here. No? So my point here is let's start. Let's start being grateful to our fellow men. Once we practice that one, it's easy to be grateful to God and stop questioning God because we are used to it now. If you cannot love a brother, someone whom you can see, how can you love God? So it's the same way again. If you are not grateful to your fellow men for whatever things that we extended to you, then there's a tendency that you will question God because you have not seen God. You question those whom you have seen, and all the more that you will question God whom you do not see. Guys, I hope you get the point. I only give one verse for us to think about. So again, it should be from our heart. We have to start. We have to start doing that, practicing that. It's easy. It's easy to recognize that His to acknowledge, to be grateful to God for all the things that He has given us, if we practice it with our children. Okay. So any other comment? Any other comment? That's the last item actually. So short, it's pretty short. So three things that I need. One is feeling brighter than God. So I hope we should not feel that way. That we are much better than God. Second is another cause is or possibility is we lack the trust. We lack trust or we distrust God, so we say. And then the third is we are ungrateful to men. We cannot be grateful to God. Okay, so let's proceed to our reflection. So the first one is, do we sometimes act or think as if we know better than God? Okay? So if we think that we are better than God, that's the time we will question that. Because you are better than God. Yeah? Next, do we question God, especially when we have problems? I think some of you will not hear last Sunday. I'll just recap what I gave also last Sunday, or just a portion of that. Problems can come from God. Okay? So I emphasized that last Sunday, the problems can come from God. It can also come from the enemy who is trying to destroy us. Now, that's like what Sister mentioned a while ago, even at the start, that we have problem after another, you tend to question God. Now, this is again something we can say that normal. That if you have problems, you do this. Now, my advice is, if you have problems, don't stay away from God. Don't stay away from God. Because if it was from the enemy, he will give you problems one after another. Because that's the only way that you'll be staying away from God. So He's happy. Now, if you do the opposite, if you have problem, you come to God. And if that problem comes from the enemy, He will never give you problem, because it's useless to give you problem when you get closer to God, when He gives you problem, right? So those problems that came from the enemy will be gone. Now, if it is from God, just to test your faith, then every time you have problem, you come to Him, then all the more than, eventually, God will bless you. Okay, God is not a God of distraction. No? So if He gives us problem, it's actually for us, beneficial to us, and then later on, He will always bless us. Unlike the enemy, according to Christ, He comes to steal and kill. But Christ came to give life abundantly. Okay, so you have to think about it. So, problem will be lesser if we do that. No? But sad is, once you have problem, we stay away from God. It doesn't solve the solution, it worsens. It doesn't solve the problem, it worsens the situation. Okay? So I hope when we have problems, we should not question God, rather we come closer to God. Are we always grateful towards our fellow men? So I hope you don't already the point where I asked the question. So I hope we are always grateful towards our fellow men. And the fourth one is, are we willing to learn God's ways instead of questioning Him? No? The Bible is filled with examples for us to learn. Okay, so we'll just stop here. So thank you very much for your participation. I don't know if there's any comment from the no comment from the Zoom.
Yeah.